Hello and welcome. Happy Independence Day. It's a day to celebrate, a day to truly feel the spirit of being Indian. It's also, of course, an important news day because in a few moments from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be unfurling the national flag and then addressing the nation from the ramparts of Red Fort as we await his arrival at Red Fort. We want to tell you exactly what we're up to this morning, because we are bringing you an experience like you've never seen before on Indian television. We are going to be giving you Speech Analytica, decoding the speech of the Prime Minister. Let me first introduce all our guests who've joined me. The India Today team has come together for this live experience to give you a sense of how in this multimedia age we can connect you and actually decode and simplify the Prime Minister's speech and explain it for you. Joining us, Ajit Jha, editor research at India Today, someone with a formidable wealth of political experience. Rahul Kanwal, my colleague, managing editor, and someone who's going to be driving this speech analytica and fact check mode here at India Today. Next to him, his colleague from the fact checking team, Bala, joins us looking very serious this morning. Happy Independence Day. Bala, that's a good smile. Rajiv Dubey, welcome to the show. Our Business Today editor, who will also give us a sense of the economy in terms of what the Prime Minister says. My colleague Meetu Jain from India Today's National Bureau. She will tell us what's going on behind the scenes. Dr. Shinjana Mitra Das from Daily O. She will give us her opinion on the Prime Minister's speech. Next to her, Anshuman Tiwari, who is the head of India Today's Hindi service, and he will tell us, he knows all the inside track again to what's happening. Shweta Punj joins us from the India Today team again, from the magazine team, and she will give us her perspective. And Kamlesh, the head of our India Today web, and they will, in a sense, take us through the next couple of hours as we decode the Prime Minister's speech. We're waiting, as I said, for the Prime Minister to arrive at Lahori Gate, where he will, in a short while from now, unfurl the tricolour before giving us his 5th Independence Day address. Just a bit of trivia, not too many Prime Ministers have had the privilege of 5 Independence Day addresses. You can go back to Jawaharlal Nehru, then Indira Gandhi, Narasimha Rao achieved that, Rajiv Gandhi before him, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Manmohan Singh, of course, did as many as 10. Now we have the Prime Minister all set for his 5th Independence Day address. But Rahul, give us a sense of why Speech Analytica and what you're planning to do today is very different to anything that has happened on Indian television on a day like this, where routinely we just listen to the Prime Minister without actually being able to explain what's happening.
Happy Independence Day, Rajdeep.
Happy Independence Day.
The Prime Minister's speech, and this is something that we're kicking off going all the way up to the general elections, is going to be one of the key drivers of the narrative, the political narrative. This is a big occasion. Everybody's got the text, but what's the subtext? So what we've done is we've dissected the previous 4 Independence Day speeches of the Prime Minister. We've looked very carefully at his policy thrust analysis in each of those speeches. What we've been looking at is building a word cloud which will fire on the screen right at the bottom once the Prime Minister's address starts. You will see which policy, which thrust, which pivot is the Prime Minister harping on again and again. For example, in the first year, there was a lot of Swachh Bharat. This year, the focus could well be on Ayushman Bharat. So which is the key thrust area of the Prime Minister? How many times does he refer to that word? Also, we've looked at some of the claims that he's made in previous years. Our fact check desk has been working on putting together details that are publicly available about the veracity of those claims. So there'll be a live fact checking happening as well. So everybody's got the text. We'll try and put together the subtext about the Prime Minister saying, Rajdeep.
And presumably, Kamlesh, you can get all of this on indiatoday.com as well. So there will be, as we are analyzing the speech, I can sit in front of my computer as well and get exact updates on our analysis.
Yes, our Speech Analytica page has the speech. You can see the live coverage of the speech, while everything that the analysts here, the experts here in this room will be typing and analyzing and decoding will be available on the same page on the right-hand side.
Okay, let's give more trivia, because ahead of the Prime Minister's speech, what is interesting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi is for how long will he speak? In 2014, the Prime Minister spoke for 65 minutes. In 2015, it was 86 minutes. 2016, it was 94 minutes. 2017, it actually came down below 1 hour for the first time, 57 minutes. My sources in the PMO suggesting he wants to keep to what he did in 2017, not cross the hour mark. The belief is the longer you speak, people then tend to slowly switch off. Ajit, what's the sense you get? What is set the template for us? Elections in less than 8 months. General election, possibly in 4 months as well. There is this side talk of a potential snap poll that he calls in December itself. Give us the backdrop. What do you see the Prime Minister doing in this big election, in this big Independence Day speech?
Rajdeep, as you rightly pointed out, elections is important, but more important is the fact that he faces what we call a grand alliance, the Mahagathbandhan. So he has to obviously broaden his speech in order to include more political partners and reach out to newer constituents, not merely the ones that he has reached out to earlier. So there'll be focus on what I would see, Dalits, the OBCs, minorities to some extent, and others. So it will be a more all-inclusive speech in order to get southern players along in his alliance.
Okay, let's do a Twitter kind of discussion at the moment. 140 characters. What's the one thing everyone around the table is looking forward to listening to? What do you believe is going to be key? Let's start with you, Shweta. Give us your 140 character tweet on what you expect the Prime Minister to do or what not expect him to do.
Okay, I think he'll definitely address the job situation, because there is a lot of anger, resentment that the development in the job situation has not been very encouraging. So jobs for sure, Ayushman Bharat, and my sources tell me there could be something on the lines of universal basic income. More than 140 characters, I mean.
Universal basic income. He might actually
something
return.
on the lines of universal basic income.
Anshuman.
I think will PM speak against lynching, because in his second speech in Independence Day he said that violence has no rule or no place in the country in the context of Maoism and Naxalism. He has not spoke anything in the Independence Day speech against the lynching. So we are looking forward, and he has started saying against the lynching.
But 10 साल का moratorium था. In his first speech, उन्होंने कहा था 10 साल का moratorium चाहिए on divisive politics. Do you believe he will go back to that issue, or will he focus on the economy?
No, I think he'll go on those issues because in recent interviews he started speaking against these things. In very recent interview he said that no, I'm against the violence. So there's two issues which I'm looking forward. One is that whether he is going to give us some kind of hisab kitab to the country, that what he has done in last 4 years, because that's what his last speech. And second, whether he is going to set the tone of the one major scheme which is likely to take forward up to the 2019 elections.
Okay, let's go back to Twitter talk. 140 characters. What are you looking forward to?
Rajdeep, I'd be very interested in knowing whether he is going to employ the personal story, because I think for him, not being from a family of privilege is a USP, and I think he's going to make that part of his India speech, part of his India story.
You mean back to Namdhar versus Kamdhar?
I think that will play a role. Let's see how much of a balance between policy and personal the speech will actually contain, but I do think it will show up in his address to the nation, making his story a part of the India story.
Meetu Jain.
Rajdeep, one important thing that I think he should be talking about is one nation, one poll, and the fact that the entire country should be having elections at the same time. Now, is that possible? Constitutionally, it is not. So, would he be going in for president's rule in some of the states? How would he be really looking at this, one nation, one poll is something that is topmost in his mind, I would say.
You think that he will use this opportunity to spark off, to further take that debate even forward? Dr. Rajiv Dubey.
Rajiv, I think it's going to be twofold. One is what he will present as a kind of report card to the nation in the 5th year, just in the run up to the elections, which will have to do with jobs, which will have to do with agri situation, which will have to do with corruption and black money and his initiatives in infrastructure building and all. The second part, I think, will be about the social initiatives that he'll be taking, which will be something on the lines of the Ayushman Bharat scheme as healthcare scheme, as well as something on Jan Dhan and initiatives like that.
Bala.
Rajdeep, I think the focus is going to be on Ayushman Bharat because that government has been working on this for quite some time, and apart from that employment job scenario, Mudra Yojana, and definitely the attempts the government is making to bring back black money, that must be going to be the focus this time around.
Let's get a sense though as to why, Rahul, this speech is far more politically significant perhaps than his first four. The first one was important. That's where he set the entire context to his governance. Na khaunga, na khane dunga, Swachh Bharat, made an attempt to suggest that he was different to his predecessor Manmohan Singh, who simply read out, according to Prime Minister Modi, the government's achievements and programs. The fifth speech, what do you see is the biggest challenge that the Prime Minister faces in an election year?
Rajdeep, one of the key things we want our viewers to look out for once the Prime Minister starts speaking is our word cloud analysis. And we'll have that up, and that answers your question to a bit, because if you look at the previous four speeches and compare each speech with the previous year, it gives you a sense of how his priorities change over the years. So I'll start with 2014, where his key priority was farmers. He spoke of farmers 19 times in his 2017 speech. He spoke of the poor 17 times. So farmers and the poor were his key priority in 2017. If we work our way backwards, coming now to 2016, here he spoke of electricity 20 times. He spoke of villages 15 times. Let's just scroll back further to 2015, where he spoke of banks 21 times. He spoke of corruption 19 times. Let's scroll even further to 2014, where you'd remember he spoke a lot of cleanliness, he spoke of digital India, he spoke of villages, he spoke of the youth. So each time his priority, Rajdeep, has been different. It's not as if the Prime Minister isn't putting adequate thought into it. What his priority is at every point in time, he keeps in mind. Naturally, as you said, this time his key challenge to set the tone for Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh as well, and to show people he's a Kamdar PM working very hard to win re-election.
Because let's be clear, you know, the 2017 speech came 1 month after, or 6 weeks after the Prime Minister had had his midnight session on GST. So if you see GST, it was a dominant feature in the theme that the Prime Minister said, and it was about, in the backdrop of demonetization, which had taken place in 2016 November, he wanted to explain himself. This time, is GST demonetization at all an issue for the Prime Minister to address? Is he going to give us a report card of the last 4 years? Can we expect now the Prime Minister to finally say, this is what I've achieved, this is what the previous government did, but I've taken, you know, this ABCD is why you should be re-electing me? Is this his first, in a sense, truly election speech on Independence Day? Would I be right in saying that?
Yes.
An election speech?
In fact, I would think that this is perhaps the first time he's presenting a speech when the narrative is so negative around him, whether it's the economy, whether it's the social milieu of the country. You have lynchings, you have sliding growth, you have jobs where the Prime Minister and his policies have come under question. So this is going to be the time when he's really going to try and push forward a very positive narrative.
Just to say, the Prime Minister at Rajghat, which is of course one of the other rituals of Independence Day for the leader, he goes to Mahatma Gandhi's Samadhi. Interestingly, it will be interesting to know, Rahul, how many times has the Prime Minister referred to Mahatma Gandhi in his previous 4 Independence Day speeches? And will there be a reference to the father of the nation? Because next year, of course, is 150 years of Mahatma Gandhi's birth anniversary celebrations. And the Prime Minister has laid a lot of store by that, Ajit. A sense that maybe this is an occasion then for him to go back to Gandhi. Whenever you're in doubt, always turn to Mahatma Gandhi.
So
that's the way it is.
In 2014, Rajdeep,
yes,
the word Gandhi is not amongst his top 10 words. It's not among the top 15 either. But amongst the words he used, he spoke of Mahatma Gandhi 4 times. He spoke of model villages in the context of Gandhi 5 times. So we're tracking that as well. So 4 times in 2014, the Prime Minister spoke of Mahatma Gandhi. After that, the emphasis on Gandhi hasn't been quite as much. But in his original speech, there were lots of references to Gandhi.
And I presume he's never referred to Jawaharlal Nehru in any of those speeches, which we'll also look at. But, you know, is this a Prime Minister who sees himself as a man of destiny, as a man who wants to carve his own history? This is an occasion. You know, this is the one speech where he doesn't know whether I'll give another one. You know, this is could be his last one, or could be the beginning of another era.
He knows he's giving 5 more at least.
Well, he hopes so. Let's be honest. When he started his first speech, he knew 100% he had 4 more to give. This time, he comes knowing that he needs to give a speech which ensures he can do 5 more.
Absolutely.
Do you believe that changes the thing? When you first heard him in 2014, were you impressed by what the manner in, his demeanor, the way he went into the speech? Today, do you believe there's a sense that he needs to reinvent himself in some way to ensure another 5 years?
I think so, Rajdeep. I think he's going to have to draw out a lot more self-confidence. If you remember, the last major speech he gave was in the no confidence motion, where it became a very long speech. He was kind of constantly countering the opposition's charges. He was taking on Rahul Gandhi. He seemed to not enjoy himself very much when he was actually speaking. The thing about Narendra Modi, why people really look forward to his speeches, is because rhetorically it's fireworks. It's a real roller coaster, and you have fun listening to him. So let's see. I hope he's going to enjoy himself when he makes this speech. As you said, this is the last of his first round as PM. He could certainly be coming back, but a lot will also hinge on this speech. The kind of confidence that he exudes, the kind of positive energy that he exudes, the kind of readiness, and the kind of projecting himself as the only prime ministerial candidate with that kind of energy.
Right, and he doesn't have an opposition this time to interrupt his speech. So this is what he likes. This is where Mr. Modi is perhaps seen to be at his best, because he can resort to all his oratorical flourishes, all the acronyms, without anyone from the other side responding. But let's look at that contrast between 2017, when GST was top of the mind, and today. Do you believe, I like that band that you're wearing. Just show it to our viewers. It looks really nice. It's a tricolor band. I've only got a handkerchief, but you've got a sweatband on. Rajiv, you've been looking at GST in the last year. Is the economy top of the mind in 2017? The rupees just, in 2018, the rupees just gone below 70 only yesterday?
It's probably the most challenging year as far as the Prime Minister is concerned economically, because here we are in a situation where China and US are going to be fighting in a kind of tariff war. India is getting caught in between, Europe is getting caught in between. They have imposed new sanctions on Iran, and India is getting caught in between. We have inflation is very high, our oil price is very high. The job situation is really tense as far as the economy is concerned, and this can only get worse if for instance something like the oil prices continue to rise in the tariff war between the US and China. It's going to hurt the country pretty badly, and you can see how it is already impacting the rupee. If it impacts the rupee, it in fact impacts inflation inside the country for every product that India imports, including fuel, and fuel causes far more inflation into the country. So across the board, the country is going to face fairly significant economic challenges in the coming year.
Anshuman, you wanted to make a point on the economy. Do you believe that's top of the mind for the Prime Minister? At the end of the day, you win elections on the state of the economy, and therefore the Prime Minister needs to give that sense. As we see the Prime Minister come in that imposing car, he's just arrived at the Red Fort. In a few moments from now, we expect him to unfurl the tricolour. So all the pomp and pageantry of the Indian state on display as Prime Minister Narendra Modi steps out of his car and will now walk towards the ramparts of Red Fort. But yes, very quickly, Anshuman.
Rajdeep, as far as narrative is concerned, probably he's going to set electoral narrative, and right now we don't have anything concrete to offer in terms of the economy, because the challenges are very clear, and that is there. Growth is sliding, rupee is going in problem, banks are having serious problems. So probably he will try to harp upon those populist schemes which will bring him some kind of popular narrative. I would like to refer from 2 points. One is this: his first speech was very important in terms of structural reforms. In the very first speech, he's decided and declared the end of the planning commission in India. Where do we stand right now? After 4 years, does Niti Aayog given something to us in the last 4 years? And the second most important announcement which he made in his first speech, that India is going to very soon be a manufacturing hub, and India will keep exporting to the country. On these two aspects, I think the economy has not helped him. Neither dismantling a planning commission has brought in some major structural reforms in terms of the planning, and second, that exports are still having a tough time.
So obviously life is not as comfortable for Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2018 as it was in 2014. Huge majority, he could drive the country forward. And that really, in a sense, makes his task this time a little bit more challenging. There he is in an orange safa. Orange is the color of the day. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rahul, whether you're fact checker or Bala, if you can tell me, was that exactly the same color, if I remember, something similar that he wore in 2014? It was that Jodhpuri kind of safa, more Rajasthani, and it seems with Rajasthan going to the polls in a few months from now, the Prime Minister has a slightly Rajasthani look, if I may say so, as he goes. And Mr. Modi's dress sense does always make news.
And pagdi, you know, it takes a certain swagger and confidence to carry off a pagdi like that. Now, how many men would be comfortable with a pagdi that's got, you know, that's flowing in the way that it is? Look at the way he's walking. There's a certain swagger in the man. Rajdeep, you said he doesn't know whether he's coming back to power. In his head, he's convinced. He's done more than enough to come back to power and do so in style. Whether that's validated by the people of India, that remains to be seen. But there is a certain swagger which we haven't seen for a long time in previous prime ministers when they were speaking on a similar occasion.
In fact, contrast him with Dr. Manmohan Singh. You know, the blue turban.
He almost seemed apologetic in some senses
that's
about
right. And the blue turban was always there. There was no attempt made by Dr. Singh to set a fashion trend on Independence Day. Prime Minister Modi has made a conscious attempt to make a fashion statement every time he's there on Independence Day.
No, look at the march also, Rajdeep. You know, there's a certain NCC stroke RSS stroke slightly army regimentation in that march, that walk, that salute. Whereas Dr. Manmohan Singh had a very civilian way of taking a salute. No disrespect, but that's just the way it was. Whereas
he needs to lose weight. If he wants to join the army, he has to lose weight.
He's beyond retirement age.
At least as far as the army is concerned. But there is, as you say, a certain sort of energy which he always shows in the way he approaches these occasions. This is what he enjoys, this is what he relishes. He loves the big stage. Once, many years ago, he told me one of the things that Mr. Modi enjoyed as a young boy was one-act plays, where all the focus was on him. This is exactly why I think he relishes these Red Fort speeches. I've often believed...
And there's no Rahul Gandhi will come and hug him this time.
That's right.
Either.
And I've often believed, I don't know whether you agree with this, Ajit, 2013, August 15, was perhaps the day Narendra Modi announced himself as a serious prime ministerial contender. This was when, within minutes of Manmohan Singh finishing his Independence Day speech, Mr. Modi gave his speech in Bhuj, virtually recreating a Red Fort-like scenario where he was challenging, in a way, Manmohan Singh point by point. Do you believe that, in a sense, this is where his communication skills are what give him an edge as a politician?
Absolutely, Rajdeep. He's a master of symbols. He connects history. He begins with Krishna Mohan and Ram and then jumps to Tilak and Gandhi. With, you know, the entire span of Indian history, he's able to bring with just 4 icons. So that way his flourishes, you know, his theatrical background. But what I believe is that his bigger challenges was between 2014 to 16, when you had back-to-back, you know, droughts in the country. You had massive farm distress. Today, I think the situation economically is a little better than what some of my colleagues pointed out. Why? Because you see there is a V-shaped recovery taking place. If you look at the sort of 2017 data for the last 3 quarters that has just been published, growth rate has increased rather than decreased. Number 2, in fact, you find, you know, more people are buying tractors, more people are buying autos. So there is a pickup of the economy post-demonetization, post-GST.
You used the word agriculture. You used the word agriculture. Bala, if you can look at this, and Rahul, you can sort of give us a sense of, because you've gone through specific words. Kisan was used in 2015 23 times. Krishi was used in Gaon was used in 2014 29 times. There's a belief that eventually not just the economy but the state of the farmer, the health of the farmer will decide what happens in 2019. Do you expect across this table, as you'll look at how often has he used these words over the years, that to become a thrust area? That has to be surely, along with jobs, Shweta, where the Prime Minister has to find, in a sense, his his métier in this election.
Absolutely. In fact, farmers have consistently been featured in all his speeches, in all his addresses beyond Independence Day, in fact. Because the fact is that even though the government has claimed to do a lot, whether it's the crop insurance scheme, whether it's the MSP revision, there is a lot of disenchantment with the government from the farmer community. We've seen farmer agitations pretty much all across, all through his tenure. So he'll have to figure out or say something or announce something more tangible. What I'm hearing is that there could be, in fact, even a cash compensation announced on MSPs. That could be a way to pacify the farmer community. We have to remember that this speech could be very high on rhetoric because he's not going to have to account for where the money is going to come from. It's all going to go down to the next year. So it's going to be high on rhetoric, definitely something for the farmers, which gives them more
if you
tangible.
look at the word cloud analysis for the last 4-year Independence Day speeches, you will find that starting 2014, in every speech, the poor, the villagers and the farmers have been the 3 top thrust areas for the Prime Minister. In 2014, he spoke of the poor 29 times, villages 29 times. In 2015, poor 44 times, farmers 23 times. 2016, he spoke of farmers 31 times, the poor 27 times. 2017, farmers 19 times, poor 17 times. These have been the 2 key catchwords, the 2 key thrust areas for the Prime Minister every year. Beyond that, things have changed. In 2016, the focus was electricity. In 2017, it was the youth. In 2015, it was corruption. In 2014, also it was the youth. So, point 3 onwards, the thrust changes. Point 2, farmers and the poor, that is consistent across 4 speeches of the Prime Minister, Rajdeep.
One thing I would like
Yes.
to point out, Rajdeep, where the farmer income is concerned, he's talking about farmer, at least 20-30 times in every speech. But what is he really doing for the farmer? Where is MSP going? This time, for the first time in 70 years, we've actually changed the formula for MSP, and essentially now the most important input where MSP was concerned was the rent, where the cost of the land is concerned. That has not been included, which means farmers, even though Amit Shah has been talking about the fact that 50% increase in MSP, that is actually not reflecting on the ground. So it is basically a change. It appears that there's been an increase, but there's been no increase. It's actually just another jumla, is what the opposition would call it.
That's the opposition's way of looking at it. But, again, when I look at 2017, the word Kisan was used 19 times, Garib 17, Naujawan 12. And many believe that the opposition is going to say, what have you done for the Kisan and Jawan? These are the 2 constituencies that the opposition is targeting. So Mr. Modi needs to address that. There may be no opposition in front of him, unlike in Parliament, but somewhere he needs to convince the people of this country that this is a government that is committed to the Kisan and the Jawan. Jawan meaning the youth. And therefore I expect these words to be even more this time.
In fact, I'd like to take forward the argument that Ajit was making about a recovery that we are seeing now in the economy. That's true, because we are seeing a turn in the rural economy. So the government has, of course, been mindful of the fact that there's not been much economic activity on ground. So they've diverted a lot of money towards infrastructure creation, which has a spillover effect. So you're seeing benefits of that. So by the time the government actually goes to polls, we could see a lift in the rural sentiment. We are seeing tractor sales go up, like Ajit was pointing out, consumer durables.
So is there any hole, is there any black hole that the Prime Minister needs to address today? Any potential minefield?
I think what you're talking about, youth, is essentially going to be about the jobs, the job scenario, and he's tried to build that momentum. With the EPFO data, with his talk about how much jobs have been created by the Mudra Yojana. So you can question all that. You can question the fact that the Mudra loans are so low that they can barely create the 10x kind of multiple per loan. But surely there has been some he's going to talk about job creation, which has been done through these kind of schemes and these kind of initiatives. And for the first time, he's going to say that there are concrete numbers for that.
Okay.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.